Hi, welcome back to the channel. Do you want to improve your students' ability to write a cohesive and engaging piece of writing, or do you want to improve their outcomes for their writing piece relative to Naplan? Well, if you do, stick around because I think you're going to like today's video. Naplan, it stands for National Assessment Program for Numeracy and Literacy, and it's a standardized test that's conducted in Australia. Now, an important element of that testing is that students actually have to go ahead and write a coherent and engaging piece of writing. But what does that mean? Well, today we're going to actually talk about how to write a cohesive piece that is smooth and engaging. We're also going to actually have a look at the Naplan standards based on a rubric that's been developed and been used effectively and quite beneficially out in schools in Australia. By the end of this, if you're a teacher, you should have a better idea on how to assess the students' writing and also what to focus in on and teach your students to improve their learning or test outcomes. If you're a student, well, you're going to learn how to improve your writing cohesion and also get better outcomes on your tests as well when it comes to Naplan. Listen, we've got a bit to get through, so let's dive right in. Writing cohesion, the way in which different elements of a written text are connected and flow together smoothly to create a unified and coherent whole. Okay, so in front of you right now, you can actually see an extract from the rubric that I mentioned earlier on that is used to indicate what level the student has attained in Naplan with a writing piece they've done. Now, as you can see, it goes from pre-foundation level right through to the end of year 9, and at each level there is a description on what is assessed or required to achieve that year's level or standard for cohesion. Now let's have a look at this in a little bit more detail and look at what the main themes are here on a chronological basis. So one of the first main themes actually is that of sentences, and it starts from mid-F and is mentioned right through the rubric up until mid-year 1. The next theme is word associations and antonyms and synonyms, and that's mentioned in mid-year 1 to the end of year 1, or those standards for those years for cohesion. Links and connectives, they are mentioned from the end of year 1 right through to the end of year 5. Referring words there mentioned from mid-year 3 right through to mid-year 5. Verb tenses, this theme seems to be noted from mid-year 3 right through to the end of year 5. Then clarity, that is mentioned from the end of year 5 through to the middle of year 7. And then finally, logical movement and narrative and links between experiences and meaning are mentioned between the end of year 7 through to the middle of year 8. Let's have a look at these in more detail and see basically what's wrapped up in each one. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and then at the end we'll try and summarize everything back together. So let's talk about, first of all, what's a sentence, being the main theme that sort of like was noted there from the middle of F through to the middle of grade 1. Well, a sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought or idea. It typically contains a subject, which is a who or a what that appears in the sentence that is actually doing something, and a predicate, what the subject is doing or being, which may include an object, what or whom the subject is acting upon. A sentence can be a statement, a question, a command, or an exclamation. So let's get an example up on the board. So Margot ate the pie. Margot is actually a subject. It's the what or the who that's actually, the sentence is about, or the person who is doing the action. The verb in this sentence is ate, and the object in this sentence is the pie. Now, as mentioned earlier, not every sentence will have an object in it, but every sentence in English, most sentences will have a subject and a verb. Now, the verb and the object can be rolled up into a term called a predicate. And as mentioned, a predicate is basically what the subject is doing or being. Now, what you've heard or seen in writing, where someone's written what or said what. Now, this here is not a complete sentence, okay? In this case, what is being used as an interjection to express surprise, confusion, or disbelief. While it can function as a standalone utterance in a conversation or informal text, it doesn't actually have a subject in it. It's just basically someone saying what, or sort of like an exclamation, but a question in a way. So there's no actual subject here. So this is not a sentence. Ouch. Now, ouch also is not a sentence because there is no actual subject included in this statement. Run. Now, run, this is a little bit different, and a lot of people fall into this trap thinking that this is not a sentence. But this actually is a sentence, and we'll talk about that now. It is a grammatically complete sentence because it contains an implied subject, which is you, okay, and a predicate, the verb, which is run. So the subject's really implied because it's a command or an imperative, this word. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky on identifying what a sentence is. But I suppose, the main thing to note here is that it's clear and it's implied what the subject is to make run by itself a sentence. Okay, so let's talk about the next main theme that pops up in this rubric, and that is synonyms, antonyms, and word associations. A synonym is a word that has the same or similar meaning as another word. For example, happy and joyful are synonyms, or angry and furious are synonyms. They both have similar meanings to each other. Now, using synonyms can actually help to make the text more cohesive because it provides some variety in language and helps the writer avoid being repetitive in the words that they use, because there's nothing worse than reading something and just hearing the same words over and over again, when you can actually use different words that have a similar or same meaning to indicate the same thing. An antonym is a word that has the opposite meaning of another word. For example, hot and cold are antonyms, or angry and sad are antonyms. They have the opposite meaning to each other. Now, using antonyms can help to make text more cohesive by allowing for contrast and differentiation between ideas. For example, if a writer is describing the weather, they may use antonyms such as sunny and cloudy to distinguish between different types of weather conditions and provide that clarity on what's trying to be communicated or described. Word associations are the connections between words that are created through their meanings, contexts, and usage. For example, the sun, beach, and sand, or these words, are often associated with each other because they share a common theme or idea. Now, using word associations can help to make text more cohesive by allowing for the linking of related ideas and concepts. For example, if a writer is describing a particular place, they may use word associations such as vibrant, colourful, and lively to convey the idea that the place is full of energy and activity. And really sort of like work on that idea of, I suppose, show, don't tell to a degree as well. Okay, let's look at the next main theme, transitional words. So transitional words are basically words or phrases that can help to connect ideas and provide coherence and structure to a piece of writing. They are used to signal a shift from one idea to another, or to indicate the relationship between ideas, or to provide additional information or clarification. Now, let's get some clarification actually on this statement itself and look at an example of what we're trying to communicate here. So, the original two sentences in our example here are, I am staying home tonight. I really want to go to the party. Now, these two sentences together, their use is a little bit, what can I say, awkward or choppy. But let's try and use a transitional word to make them flow better together. So here it is. I am staying home. However, I really want to go to the party tonight. So here in this example, however is used as a transitional word to introduce a contrasting idea or to indicate a shift in the writer's perspective. And you can see how it is a lot easier to read and communicates better what the person who's saying it is trying to say. Now let's have a look at a list of transitional words, and this can be quite extensive. And once you see these words, you'll see, oh yeah, the sentences or the writing that I read with these in it, or these words in it, sounds and reads a lot better. So first, next, then, after that, in conclusion, in other words, there's quite a few there. And yeah, if you see those in the kids' writing, well, you can actually see that they're using transitional words. Otherwise, you can go ahead and actively teach these. And I'm pretty sure there'll probably be a lot more out there if you want to go out and have a look and find those as well. So the next main theme is verb tenses. Now, verb tenses are the forms of verbs that indicate the time at which an action or event occurred. So in English, we actually have three main verb tenses. And the first one is present tense. Now, present tense is normally used to talk about something that's currently happening or habitually happening. And an example here is provided on the screen, which says, I walk to the park every day. So the verb here is walk, and when used this way, it actually communicates something that's done as sort of like a habit, obviously in this case every day. There's also past tense, which is used to describe actions that have already happened or finished. For example, I walked to the park yesterday, so that action finished yesterday and is not continuing now and is not a habit, or that statement doesn't indicate that it's a habit. The last main tense that we use in English is future tense, and that is used to describe something that will happen in the future. The example here is, I will walk to the park tomorrow. So it hasn't happened yet, but will happen at some future time. Now, each of these main tenses can also further be divided into other tenses that are called continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous, which add additional information about the duration, completion, and ongoing nature of an action or event. Now, understanding verb tenses is important to accurately convey time frames of actions and events in both written and spoken communication. There's nothing worse than sort of like reading something that should be written maybe in past tense that then comes out in the writing or is being said by someone that is in future tense. When the tenses are mucked up, it makes it really confusing for the reader to understand exactly what's going on and can really destroy your story or your writing. Now let's have a look at a list of all the tenses in English, which is, yeah, you'll be quite surprised how many tenses there are. So here's that list that basically lists all the sentence tense types that we use in English, and there's 13 of them, and you can see them listed down there on the left-hand side of this table. And each of those sentences has a little bit of a different structure and also conveys a little bit of a different meaning as well. So yeah, have a look at that. Go into it more detail if you want, and maybe help kids to actually identify what's the best sentence type to convey what they really want to say. On to referring words. Now, referring words are words in a text or a phrase in a text that refer back to previously mentioned people, objects, or ideas. These words help to connect different parts of a story and make it easier for the reader to follow the narrative. And here are a couple of examples of referring words. So some examples could be the usage of pronouns like he, she, it, they, and them. Instead of having to mention the person that you've mentioned previously or the object or the thing, you could use a pronoun. Or you could use a phrase like the blue car, the old man, or the treasure chest. So in these cases, you would have described the previously mentioned person, object, or thing, and you can use that description to actually refer back to them. Now, the great thing about referring words is that, like we've mentioned before, we want to decrease repetition of what we're writing or the words that we're using in what we're writing to make the text more engaging and coherent. And this is exactly what referring words can do. It can stop the repetition of the same words over and over and over to communicate a person, object, or idea. Okay, so clarity is the next main theme, and let's talk about, well, I think we're fairly clear on what clarity means, or we have clarity around clarity. But let's talk about some of the devices that can be used in writing or texts to actually help that text have clarity. So the first thing that a text would want to have would be to have a clear structure. Now, for example, a narrative would want to have a beginning, middle, and end with a logical sequence of events that flows smoothly. The writer should try to introduce the main characters and the setting and establish the conflict or problem and then move the story forward to its resolution. Now, you'll also have clear structures for things like persuasive texts and informational texts as well. The next device you could use to help a piece of writing have clarity would be descriptive language. Now, the writer should use descriptive language to create a vivid picture of the setting, characters, and events. And this would be using the five senses, that show, don't tell sort of technique as well, to help the reader to immerse themselves in the story. You'd also want to develop your character also in that piece of writing. And this should be, developing the characters really well with clear motivations, emotions, and behaviors. The reader should be able to understand why the characters are doing what they are doing and empathize, I should say, with their struggles and challenges. Another device you could use would be dialogue. So dialogue is an important tool for advancing the plot and revealing character traits. A clear narrative includes dialogue that is authentic and natural and that helps to move the story forward. The next device you could use is, consistency. The narrative should be consistent in terms of tone and style and point of view. The writer should avoid abrupt shifts in perspective or voice, which can confuse the reader, obviously. And the last device, which sort of is a bit funny because we're talking about cohesion today, is cohesiveness. Mind you, all of these help to contribute to that. But what does that mean? Well, all the elements of the story should fit together cohesively with a clear cause and effect relationship between events. The writer should avoid introducing extraneous details or subplots that do not really contribute to that main story. So there you go. There's a few devices you can use to help provide clarity when you're doing your writing or creating a text. Logical movement of narrative basically refers to the way a story progresses and moves forward in a clear and coherent manner. It involves the organization and sequencing of events, characters, and themes to create a meaningful and engaging story. So this is really around the structure of, the narrative, story, or other type of text, be it persuasive. And there's many different roadmaps out there, or story arcs, or whatever you want to call them, that outline some natural or logical movement of the writing. Here are a few. The first one is Freytag's pyramid, which starts out with an exposition and finishes off with a denouement. Another one, Story Mountain, starting off with a background, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Some people pop in things like, sizzling starts at the beginning, or hooks, that basically grab the reader's attention and then, provide some sort of problem and move on from there. But the main thing is that, the story's got some logical movement, or the text has got some logical movement happening that helps the reader go on the journey and, helps them immerse themselves into the narrative. Okay, on to our last main theme identified in the rubric, and that is the link between experience and meaning. For a writer, this refers to the writer's ability to draw upon their own experiences and use them to create meaning within their writing, allowing them to write with greater depth and authenticity. This connection allows the writer to create a more personal and engaging piece of writing that resonates with readers. By linking personal experiences to the meaning of their writing, the writer can convey a message that is both relatable and meaningful to the reader, really providing that genuine experience and immersing the reader in the writing. Now, let's go on and have a look at a summary of all of these main themes that we've talked about. Now, I think you're going to like what's coming up now, because not only does it summarize what we've talked about today, but it will also be a great infographic that you could possibly easily refer to as a teacher, or even maybe as a student when you're writing a piece of writing. To walk you through this infographic or summary of how cohesion is marked within Naplan, you can see a strip down below that starts off with mid-F. F means foundation. Now, where you teach, you might use the word preps, or you might use the word kindergarteners, but you know what that is, and it runs right on to mid-8, like I said. Now, the first theme that pops up is sentences, and if you remember, we said that that featured heavily in the beginning of the rubric, but I've made this run on because obviously, the themes that we've discussed, or the devices we've discussed today, we've actually highlighted when they're mentioned in the rubric, but obviously students would not stop using that at that time when it stops being mentioned in the rubric. They'd constantly use it throughout their natural life, of course, whatever that theme was in their writing. Then we also have word associations, antonyms, and synonyms. Then also links and connectives. Now, I've got a brief description of what those are there, so that's an easy reference point. But I've also included in this infographic a couple of tables. One table will be a table of transitional words, but I've also included tables of other sort of connectives that you can use, like example, coordinating conjunctions, and also subordinating conjunctions as well, which obviously are links that help people's writing flow better. Apart from that, the referring words and a description of it as well, and the verb tense is a quick reference there of what they were, and clarity. And finally, the last theme that we discussed, or the last couple of themes, was logical movement of narrative and the link between experience and meaning. So hopefully through today's video, you realize that understanding writing cohesion is super critical and important when it comes to getting or achieving writing success, be it writing an engaging book, a thrilling article, or achieving outstanding results on a standardized test like Naplan. Now, remember, truly great writing is not only about showcasing your ideas, it's about making those ideas easy to understand and followed by your reader, and writing cohesion can do that for you. If you pay attention to the themes and devices that we've talked about today, as identified through the developed Naplan rubric, I'm pretty sure your teaching and learning of writing will improve. Beyond that, just remember that writing cohesion is just one criteria out of the 10 criteria that a Naplan writing piece is assessed on. And, well, I will be making videos about those other 9 criteria as the year goes on, so stay tuned for those. Finally, thank you very much for watching today. If you found today's content interesting and something that you might be interested in, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, Mr. K Teaching, and hit that notification bell so that you're notified anytime that I upload new content. Listen, thanks for watching today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.